Let's say some of them are looking like, I want to move to, let's say, Australia or the US or whatever. What kind of programs could I do there so I can come back in the Philippines? So that's where we become helpful. So we would tell them like, look, there are these universities in Australia who offer these sorts of programs. We also know Filipinos in that university. Maybe we can, connect you guys. So here, obviously, the Association for Behavior Analysis has already been, well-established organization, but there are also Filipinos in that organization. So we get to kind of connect with other Filipinos there and also fellow Asians. So there are, at least in my previous organization, there were a few Malaysians and Singaporeans. So we go like, hey, what's going on in there? So it's still forming that connection. Like, how are we going to give back to our communities? Where we came from.
Today on Behaviour Speak, I'm joined by 3 Filipino behavior analysts, Kathryn Mendoza, Kristine Gomez, and Kaye Castillo, who share their personal journeys into the field of applied behavior analysis and the formation of the Professional Behavior Analysts Association of the Philippines. They discuss the challenges they face in promoting ABA, the importance of cultural context and ethical standards, and the need for accessible funding for services. The conversation also highlights their efforts to support Filipino practitioners both locally and abroad, as well as their future goals for the association. Welcome, Kristine, Kaye, and Kathryn to the podcast.
Well, good morning to us. Good afternoon to you. Hello.
Thank you. Yeah, good morning to y'all. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge that I'm producing this podcast on the territories of the Klam and Clayus, Comox, Homoko, and Sechelt First Nations, and I'm grateful to be here. All right, let's start by getting to know everybody. Okay, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a BCABA from the Philippines, and I work privately with a family, and I do consultation with a local therapy center here. Currently, I am the VP internal of our local ABA organization. That's it.
Amazing. Thanks, Kaye. And Kristine?
I'm Kristine. I'm also a BCBA from the Philippines, but I'm now based here in Adelaide, Australia. I'm the external vice president of the Professional Behavior Analysis Association of the Philippines, and I'm glad to be here.
Wonderful. And Kathryn?
Hi. Hi, everybody, especially Behavior Speaks patrons. And thank you so much for inviting us here, Ben. So I'm Kathryn Mendoza. I'm a board certified behavior analyst, and I'm a BOT of our local organization, PBAP. And I have my own clinic here, and I also work with the community. So glad to be here.
That's right on. So let's maybe get a little bit of kind of your stories about how you all kind of got in the field in the first place. Kristine, how did you start off in ABA? How did you find ABA?
That's an excellent question because it has been a long journey. I started off definitely not in the profession. And then when I did my master's in the University of the Philippines, I got to work with families across different age groups, mostly kids. And well, here it was called shadow teacher, shadow therapist. So I'm included in the classrooms and I do individualized programs for the kids. But out of everything that I've tried, I would say behavior analysis is the one that absolutely works. And I've only tried a few principles here and there because I didn't really get a lot of formal training. And so when there was a center here in the Philippines that opened its doors to behavior analysts, I decided to try out. And that's where I took my postgrad in Florida Tech and I sat for my exam, passed, and that's how I became a behavior analyst. So I've been practicing for more than 10 years. When I moved here in Australia, ABA was totally different. And I work now in positive behavior supports and counseling as well as training parents. So a little bit of both.
Yeah, right on.
That's it.
Kristine, I'm curious, what were those sort of, maybe a little bit of an example of some of those sort of early principles you were applying that first said, ABA is the way I want to go?
Reinforcement. Hands down, because there are a lot of detractors saying, reinforcement doesn't work. It's about stickers and about food. But out of everything that I've tried with heaps of those, as long as we do it, correctly, I'd say I was able to teach a child, for example, who wasn't eating anything, only cornflakes. He was able to eat rice. He was able to eat pasta. And all I did was just shaping for that behavior and pairing, with, 1 scoop of rice and 1 cornflake, just very basic stuff. And I was able to teach nonverbal child to do some basic sign language and some a little bit of picture exchange just because of reinforcement. And I, had a bit of background, but I wasn't formally trained, like I said. So when I moved to that center, I got to learn more of it and I was able to create more positive changes and lots of stuff, the basic things that we take for granted, like toileting to school, being able to approach their parents and give them a hug, like stuff that matters for a lot of people. And I said, this is really the way for me. I enjoy helping families and I enjoy helping kids, seeing that I made a difference, even if it's just a, small difference. So I'm here.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And Kathryn, tell me about how you kind of got into the field.
So, first, I'm a licensed professional teacher. And so I work with young kids. I love playing with them. And so when I started working in the field, I think, or get into the field and learn about applied behavior analysis during my internship. I was part of a clinic, one of the pioneers in ABA here, I think. And so I thought that, oh, they're teaching kids and they're doing like a systematic way of how to deliver reinforcement and those assistants and so on. And after that, I get to be involved and work with a nonprofit organization, a school, and I applied as a special education teacher there. After a few years, I need to go to take my master's, and so I have to fund for myself and worked outside the Philippines. And so when I became a learning support in Tokyo, my supervisor was a BCABA, and she told me that, hey, you know what you're doing? We have a name for that. How you the child and so on and so forth. That was early 2000s. And so she told me that it's ABA.
Hmm.
And I said, oh, okay. Until I get to take my formal studies in Florida Institute of Technology. And then the next time that I work outside the Philippines once more, my colleagues told me that you should take the courses and you're doing things right and teaching these children and so on. You might want to have an upgrade. And so I took their advice and I passed the exam.
So what was it that you were doing that these folks said, hey, Kathryn, you're doing ABA and you don't even know it. So what kinds of things did they observe you doing that you were sort of doing naturally?
I think it was how I played with them, or rather, maybe I should say that the natural environment teaching
Hmm.
and the sensitivity in knowing when they are happy
Hmm. Hmm.
and placing in there like what they call it now, like indices of happiness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like, maybe because I'm a teacher, kind of really teacher, and at the same time a psychology graduate, seeing that this is the moment. You give a little bit more. After that, a
Hmm.
while ago, it's kind of wait until they're a little bit better, calmer, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been working with typical children back then, and then a few kids with learning disabilities. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's
That's
the one that I saw.
yeah. No, that's really neat.
Momentum. Yeah. So that's what.
Yeah, so it really sounds like you were able to kind of capture that motivation just naturally, and you could sort of tell when, you mentioned the indices of happiness, you could sort of
Yeah.
see when they were sort of feeling at their best and sort of find those teachable moments kind of right away. And someone said to you, Kathryn, you're doing it. You should learn a little more about this.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
And so you're the first BCBA in the Philippines. How did that come about?
Well, then think technically I'm the first local, but there were
Mm,
two BCBAs who were in the list of the BACB.
mm,
I think Dr. Shanti Kilduf, owner of one of the proponents of ABA here, I think one who it's a big clinic.
mm,
I'm not sure when did she become a BCBA, but I haven't visited the website of the BACB back then. And then there was another BCBA. I think he's maybe around 2013 he was here, or 12. I'm not pretty sure.
mm, mm,
It's Colin Levesque. And
mm,
then after that, so I keep watching I kept my eye on the BACB list, and then I found myself there. And then after me, another local behavior analyst. So
Mm,
it was just exciting to see that more and more local behavior analysts is part of the list, and finally getting to
mm.
motivated to take the formal coursework.
Yeah, yeah. And why is that important to have local BCBAs, do you think?
For me, back then, because the number of practitioners, like, it's like really growing like mushrooms, they call it here.
Hmm,
Letting the people know through the certification that these other people studied and finished the coursework is something.
hmm,
But when it's about certification, now that I'm thinking about it,
hmm,
it's not really about certification. It's really about doing the coursework, completing the coursework and the supervision hours.
hmm.
It's for me, it's secondary to get the certification. People needs to know how to fish. So yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So, Kay, how about you? How did you find behavior analysis? How did you get in the field?
Yeah, like Christine, I started as an itinerant shadow teacher. So we were actually in the same company when I started. Well, I got into ABA through one of my clients. So I was a shadow teacher, and they brought in a consultant from Vietnam. I think he was not yet certified back then, but he was already throwing some concepts to us. Actually, not making sure we're not shocked with all of the terms. So he went slow with us. So we did natural environment teach. I already heard about ABA prior to that exposure. There's a parent who once asked me, "My child needs ABA. Do you do ABA?" I said, "No, I don't. I'm not trained for that. I have not
Hmm,
received any training for that." And the kind of ABA that I saw while I was a shadow teacher, to me, it didn't seem like therapy or something different from what I was doing. It was tabletop. It looked like tutoring to me. It was, I guess now I know it's DTT, but before I didn't know because I wasn't trained. So when I see other
hmm,
teachers doing it, it looked to me like, no, they're just tutoring. They're just doing schoolwork or anything. I didn't understand. But then when I got into work with the consultant, then I saw that there are different ways, because it's a science. It's how you apply it. It's how you use
hmm,
the
mhm,
concepts and all. So then when we ended with a consultation from that guy in Vietnam, uh, Tony, we we went on to finally get ourselves certified. So I was with another teammate. So I first became an RBT before a BCABA. We actually asked or inquired ABATs also from Kathryn Center, but Colin, the one in Camiguin, the other BCBA, replied faster. So we got to get trained. And then after that, since we're already RPTs, and then we went right to becoming PCAPA. So
hmm,
it's really important, like what Kathryn said, the coursework and the certification, because we don't know what's happening with other practitioners, and it's really important, the training, the coursework, to get it right, because
hmm,
we're working with people, we don't want to mess lives. So I think it's very important to get
mhm,
supervised,
mhm,
get the coursework, get things done right, so that it won't look like
hmm,
you're doing one
hmm,
thing.
hmm, hmm. Yeah, yeah. I really see the how training and supervision is really at the forefront for all three of you, and it makes sense that you would be the ones to kind of come together and create this association. But I'd still want to hear the story. Tell me about how it all started. How did y'all meet, and then how did you come together to start this association?
Actually invited Kristine and Kaye and the other two BCABAs back then. But only Kristine and Kaye were so warm and saying, "Okay, let's meet up."
Hmm.
Kristine, tell the next part of the story.
through Facebook, of course. So Kathryn messaged us and said, like, let's have coffee. And I found that really humbling for me as a new BCBA. And I found that also very positive because in the Philippines, we don't really get to reach out to a lot of professionals. There was just a few of us. And of course, we worked in different companies. So I found it positive in a way that we were coming together as professionals, regardless of, who we work for and what we're doing. We had coffee in one of the shops in the Philippines, and Kathryn gave us presents like welcome to the board, and that was really nice. That's very Filipino. Yeah, you give gifts to someone to congratulate them, and we were chatting about how you started, similar to this podcast, and it was definitely good vibes from the very start. We love just simply talking about the challenges that we've had because there's not a lot of behavior analysts, and like what Kathryn and Kay was saying, we were all trained overseas. So we don't really have that context in the Philippines, how Filipinos teach each other behavior analysis.
Do you have a certification with the International Behavior Analysis Organization, the Qualified Applied Behavior Analysis Credentialing Board, the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, or are certified through your region's Behavior Analyst Credentialing Board? You can earn continuing education units for this episode by going to www.behaviorspeak.com and clicking on CEUs. The first secret word is coffee.
So that was very powerful for us. I said, like, let's make that organization alive again. So just like go, go, go. And Kathryn was saying, really, I didn't really know that there was. And apparently, the history behind that organization was it was created by a lot of business owners rather than professionals. We met back in 2020, and we said, like, look, it is for us. We're doing it for us. We're doing it for our community of professionals. We're not doing it because you work for this business or you have that business. It's really putting the ethical practice back to us as Filipinos and putting the culture in the center of that connection. So we're going strong for 5 years, even if we are across the globe. We're not the only ones out of the Philippines. We also work with other BCBAs in the US and also in Germany and France who are Filipinos as well. So it's about just forming that connection and giving it back to the Philippines where, it really all started. So that's it.
So how did things kind of progress from a coffee chat to an association of over 200 members? Tell me about that process.
So with the help of Facebook Messenger, we were able to reach out to more Filipinos around the globe and reached out like, hey, are you a Filipino working in the field of ABA? But I personally I continue to reach out to people I don't know. I just think like, oh, her name seems to be like a Filipino. And in LinkedIn and anywhere else, any other social media platform. So I kept on reaching out and would you like to join our Facebook Messenger or our group chat and so on and so forth. So they said, oh yeah, okay. Until we get to have more people and so more brains, more ideas. It gets crazy. But we were able to really find out who'd be more, how should I say this, committed to really be part of the core group. And finally, we were able to identify them and work on like initial planning. How should this association would, go? And until we made up for like, yeah, 17 people who initiated to put up the organization and finally register our association in our local government. And Kay would surely tell you what's the story next.
Yeah.
How it
Well,
went.
actually, we met 2018. So what actually pushed us is when the announcement that the BACB won't be certifying overseas. That's when we actually put up the group because since from 2018 to 2020, yes, we were just casually talking about it, but really we started to work on the organization 2020, 2 years later since the coffee date, that we gathered people that, hey, we're being pushed. We really need to establish this organization so that we can have our own version of the certification that can cater to the needs of the Filipino behavior analysts. So that's really the timeline of it all. And one of the things that we did, yeah, Kathryn sent out emails, made Facebook groups, and really reached out not just to Filipinos in the Philippines, really abroad. So I also got to meet a lot of other behavior analysts through the organization. And it's really inspiring to see what they're doing abroad and to have hope of improving the quality of behavior analysis locally, to bring the science, the technologies, all the current innovations abroad to the Philippines.
How many approximately, you don't have to give me an exact number, but how many members do you think are local versus international in the association? Like half or?
I'd say more than 80% because there's just a handful of us who work overseas. I would say not all of them are behavior analysts. They're not certified, but they're practicing the science. So some of them are teachers, like what Kathryn said earlier. Some of them have their own therapy center. Some are even, like our current president is an occupational therapist, but she's been practicing and she studied ABA. So I would say about 80 to 90% of those members are purely Filipinos in the Philippines. It's just like maybe less than 5 of us, or maybe even 6 of us are overseas. Well, we are part of what Kathryn was saying, the board now, or the officers, because we just build the group, but we're not there locally. So the active members are mostly in the Philippines. Like Kathryn and Kaye.
Yeah. And so with these active local members, are most of them certified in some way or another, or?
Well, our classification for to say that they are full member or an affiliate is actually if they get proper training and finish academic coursework and fieldwork hours as well, and if they have an ongoing supervision. And so initially we welcomed all the people, all professionals who's practicing ABA, and then we streamlined to classifying them, as I've said a while ago, and those criterias. And so you would imagine, like, we BCBAs, or rather behavior analysts, are really outnumbered by the direct care staff. We have like 300, a combination of ABAT, ABAT, IBT, and RBTs. Well, RBTs are less because of, BACB halt their certification outside US. But there are a lot of them, and we only have like a combination of assistant behavior analyst level and a behavior analyst together. I think we're like less than 20, or maybe 20. The list in the BACB would also be the same list almost for the QABA. And so I would say that, well, right now, if we're looking at the number of full members, it's just around less than 40. But we've invited for general members, like, how many was that? 100? But we cannot say that maybe some of them had an expired certification for frontline. I would assume they're frontline staff or direct care staff. And maybe since we placed in a stricter criteria for the safety of our consumers as well, they get to, back off a little bit and didn't pursue with the application to become a full member. But again, the association doesn't stop there. We want them to go up on the next step of the ladder in becoming a full member. And so giving them options and guiding them what to do next. And especially giving them the to motivate them, making them attend like our kapihan, or the community of practice, which is Kristine is leading, and all those journal reviews. We get to invite them again and be interested in the field, and bringing them more connections that, hey, we have few colleagues in the Indonesia, Malaysia. Maybe you'll get interested. Later on, there might be employment. So those opportunities for them to see right now, we hope that they get to be invited and become full member. Yeah, and become certified, of course, yes. Or rather take their courses back again, and.
And so right now, how have these folks been able to get the coursework and certified? Have they all had to sort of do coursework in the States? Like, what's sort of been the avenues for those, and has that been a challenge?
Definitely, it has been a challenge because, like our history, the three of us got trained overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Kathryn is one of the pioneers who had her coursework opened for Filipinos, so it's based in the Philippines. There's also a couple of other BCBAs who provide coursework to be able to sit for right now QABA and I think ABAT. And Kathryn is the one who's currently in charge of that part of the association, meaning delivering formal education. So we have been granted the opportunity to provide coursework in the university, which is the first in the Philippines. And by the way, that has been a struggle because it's kind of like we're peddling our wares to different universities and going like, please take our coursework, please take our coursework. Like, even if we are graduates of those big universities, it's not easy to go to the big university and go like, this is a big science. You will have X number of graduates. It's significant. It's scientifically proven. It's not easy to go to big universities. So we've started with a local university. It's still a big university, but not one of the four big players. And so that's already a foot in the door for a lot of us. So what we did find out from a lot of our members is that they're either graduates already, meaning they already have their bachelor's, or they're finishing their master's. So we're trying to find what is similar to how it happened in the US, where we're providing courseworks first, have that pool of graduates or certified members eventually, rather than go full on to universities. But Kathryn and Kaye never stop approaching these universities. There's always a committee who's just in charge of, going to the universities and knocking at their doors. Going like, here's the formal coursework. All we need to do is provide that in your university. But I guess Kathryn and Kaye would be able to explain that more because they're based in the Philippines and then they're in charge of that part of the association.
It is true. It is indeed a challenge. As early as like 2015, 2018. Yeah, 2015, 2018. Together actually with Dr. Neil Martin. He was really helping us in inviting these big universities to to offer the coursework.
Mm.
I had a meeting with University of the Philippines, University of Santo Tomas, Philippine Normal University, Central Escolar University, both UP Manila and UP Diliman. So we were like, hey, here's the curriculum and the syllabus, and we're ready to teach. But maybe the challenge is that the Commission on Higher Education isn't really aware about what it is, and making maybe laws in relation to what is the coursework and the availability of those people who would be teaching in a PhD level. Those are the challenges. And now that there's a way to bring in the coursework in a separate or a standalone program, should I say, like a certificate program, now the universities are more interested to try and offer it. Not just a master's program, but at least it's something to start with. And so this certificate program has a 270 hours coursework. And then they would say that we just need to try it out in this manner first before placing it in a master's program. The universities would be need to find out.
The second secret word is together.
Their way on how to offer it in masters, given that they don't have an in-house professor who has a PhD. So they get to be permitted to teach the master's program. But still there are still loopholes. So we're still have our chance to find a way, even if we don't have PhD BCBAs to teach the coursework. The Commission on Higher Education would still be considerate enough because we only have like 20. So yeah, but for sure we would love to hear from other people or other BCBAs who would love maybe come fly here to the Philippines from the West and teach in one of our universities, because we would really need their expertise and their generosity to, come to Philippines and be able to teach, or even remote, because we'd be
Mm.
needing their experience and their degree, so that our universities here would be more comfortable, maybe,
Mm.
in offering the master's program.
So this really is a call out too for listeners that if there are sort of doctoral level behavior analysts that are interested in coming to the Philippines
Yeah.
to teach, there might be a possibility there.
Yes, please. And if I may use your platform, come to
Please.
Philippines, and during summer we'll be bringing you to the different beaches.
Hmm.
It'll be cool. After those teaching hours, you'll be happy to swim with our, how do you say that? The whales in the Oslo. I forgot. So, and many diving spots. So, and Filipinos are very warm in and entertaining different nationalities. They'll surely have fun.
So the goal is a university level training course, ideally in a master's program. So you're not there yet. So right now, how are folks getting the training?
Mine is through the offering of the coursework by the Universidad de Dagupan, is under their program. Is So when you finish the program, you'll get a certificate from the university. Other ways is that there are other local providers who are not based in a higher education institution. I believe there are a couple of them who are offering that one, or also people can take the route like what we did. We took courses abroad, so that one can work out as well, because PBAP will also recognize their completion of their academic coursework.
And so what's obviously getting the coursework approved and all that is a big push. What are some of the other things that the association is working on? What else is in your mandate?
I'll give
Now we do have we do have the kapihan from the word coffee. So kape is coffee in the
Okay, I
Philippines.
was going to ask what that
Uh,
word was. Yeah.
yeah. And it's called kapihan because the three of us started with just having coffee.
Hmm.
So the way that to drive members in was first, like I said, forming that connection or that sense of community. And one of our biggest mandates was it has to be for us, by us. So we had to bring a lot of Filipinos, and this is like 7,000 islands, come together and define what the practice is in behavior analysis in the Philippines, like what's the cultural context. So we started first with that. And again, because Filipinos love Facebook more than anything, that's how we started. So we had like regular coffee chats in English, but kapihan in Filipino. And it's a kind of like a free webinar kind of thing where it's a live platform and we just have set of questions. We all have chats and people just join in and they hear from us what is the profession, how do you get certified. So Filipinos, and again, this is our understanding of our own culture, we prefer to watch it than read it. So that's how we started off. Like, if you want to, let's say, be board certified, these are the steps that you have to do. If you want to go through this pathway, this is what you have to do. And it first started with me, Kaye, and Kathryn hosting those shows. It's not so much as a podcast, but it's alive, so everybody can just ask heaps of questions. And then that's how we drove the first set of members into our organization. And then eventually we kind of branched out into we just had a recent General Assembly, our first live one in person, which is big because over COVID, it was just online. All of it was online. But our first live one, which Kay was one of the MCs, we even sold some T-shirts, like souvenirs. It was fun. It was coming together of people. I saw some of the people there from university, and it was fun to just like sit down and our favorite have food over our talking about our practices. And our current one is that community of practice. So we kind of divided it where the kapian or the coffee chats are bringing members in. The coffee chats are just getting to know what the organization will be about, whereas the community of practice, it's really us defining what is called in standard practice. So only members can join that, and we sit down and we have a set of let's say issues or problems and we talk about how do we solve that in this community, how do we solve that within our practice. There's a few upcoming. We plan to do that every quarter, And then we also liaise with the Malaysia organization and the Indonesia organization for those regular journal reviews. So that's also a way for us to get to know our neighbors and form again that sense of community. Because it's hard for us to get a lot of that Western practice when some of it might not be applicable in our context. So we're trying to do the grassroots while having that background from, Western practice. So it's good to really break it down like that and really get to define what ABA is in the Philippines while still sticking to ethical practice with the science. So amazing. That's how we kind of like start to branch out. A lot of our board members are still very active with regular meetings, so they do have a set of checklists. Like, how do we go about funding? How do we go about membership and certification? So there are different committees that are targeting those certain areas. So even if, let's say, certification is probably a few years from now, we're still developing that area so that eventually all our members will get certified.
And what are some of those maybe a couple examples of some of those sort of ethical type challenges that are really specific to the kind of the Filipino community? What kinds of conversations are you having that a community of practice?
That's a good question. I would say definitely what Kay and Kathryn was saying. Who will practice and how? And they will have a lot of examples for that because they are definitely in the field. And I've seen personally a lot of people saying like, hey, yes, we do ABA. But when you see it, it's like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because that sounds a little bit scary what I'm seeing that you're doing. But I'll leave it up to them because they're definitely in the front lines.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I'm part of the committee for the professional standards and ethics. We're actually still benchmarking what will be the standards for the Philippines, and it's it's really hard to pinpoint at the moment because there's so many issues that we need to discuss with the committee, and it's cultural. A lot of it is cultural because of course we were trained with the US standards, so with the
Right.
BACB, but then you have here, like, for example, a very dependent culture on nannies. Almost every household, middle class, will have one relying on a nanny. Have the Filipino hospitality of giving gifts. One of the things that's hard to, like Kristine said, first time we met Kathryn, we received gifts. So, it's one of those cultural things that we need to talk about others, and then training and practice. Of course, it's like, why can't you practice it by yourself? Why do you need a supervisor? Why do you need to pay you for this amount and have a supervisor? Don't you have your own? Of course, this is something that was mentioned by a parent. Don't you make your own decisions? And this is to an RBT who kept saying, oh, I need to consult with my supervisor. And the parent was like, why can't you make your own decisions? Yes, things like that. Why can't you practice by yourself? And it's a direct service provider. So there are a lot of things to unpack for the standards and ethics committee that we really need to think, not just the for the professionals, but also to the community that we're serving. How are we gonna adjust to the culture of the Filipino families?
It sounds like that there have been sort of maybe some benefits in a way of the BACB pulling out because now you're able to develop your own sort of culturally specific standards. It was the impetus for creating this community in the first place and getting folks together and talking. Overall, does it seem like this was a benefit for you, or are there still some pieces that are missing that were provided by the BACB?
I think it's really beneficial.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
But I felt in the beginning it was like, what?
A shock. A shock. 100%.
Yeah.
What are you doing? But yeah,
Yeah,
just
it
like
was quick.
kids would, initially ask why. But as you go along, you would understand the purpose, that it's really standing on our feet and understanding what we really need. And it's easier for us here to look after each other and build that standard, build that community, and really informing our consumers that here we are. And sometimes I think it would be even easier for our government to really see us that this
Mm.
is professional behavior analyst in the Philippines. Because if we have like different certifications, BCBA, QASPS, and all that, the government would say, "What? Where'd you get your certification?" From there. Okay, you work there. So it's like it has value. But
Mm.
then when you're here in the Philippines and we come together like as one profession under an association, and we show them that these are the common things that we're doing, and we have to put it, in the right way to tell that this is ABA, this isn't. This is
Mm.
incomplete ABA, maybe this is tutoring. And when they know that, I believe that the profession will grow and we get to recognize. Especially, we are happy to say that the Developmental Pediatricians Association really begins to recognize us and bring us
Mm.
in in the multidisciplinary team.
Amazing.
They get to start, happily, should I say, or warmly write in their recommendation that, okay, you go to a BCBA or include applied behavior analysis. Back then, there were
Wonderful.
hesitations. And now that they're seeing that, okay, you have your people, you come together. So I think it is the right time to, refer our patients to you guys. But
Mm.
again, we still lack the infrastructure, but we're getting.
Is there, and that's great to hear. Is there funding? Like, what does that look like as far as ABA service? How is it all private pay, or how do folks sort of access you?
It's private. All of it is private. So
Mm.
all of it is out of pocket.
Mm.
And I guess, same with Australia and the US, it is expensive,
Mm-hmm.
100%. We're funded by insurance, and in the Philippines, there's none.
Mm.
So I think that's one of the challenges if you are trained, let's say overseas, and you're a BCBA. Unless you're doing it for the passion, you won't be earning as much because
Mm.
it's going to be based on what a family could afford,
Right.
a certain number of criteria that you can't pay a behavior analyst 10 times more than you would pay an occupational therapist. Parents won't really go for that. So that's also kind of like what Kay was saying in terms of ethical practice. Because one of the tenets of the BACB is you have to be paid appropriately according to your service. But technically in the Philippines, we can't charge that much because
Mm.
it's not ethical for us in the Philippines to do that way. Same thing with the tiered supervision. Like when you compare it to an occupational therapist or a speech therapist, they don't really get the same amount of supervision because they're already a standalone practice. But in our profession as PCBAs, we do know that supervision is critical. So again, it's that ethical part is like, how are we going to bill for that? You're going to bill for two people? I've had a lot of challenging questions with that one. Like, how am I going to say, like, you're going to charge me more, whereas you don't really get to see me? That kind of thing. But yeah, Kathryn, I think has something to say as well.
Mm.
I think that is really true. Everything comes from the pocket of the families. But right now, since we have here in the Philippines what they call the Z package,
Mm.
this is actually for children with special needs, and I'm hopeful, and there's a progress that later on the field of the practice of ABA and the practitioners will get to be recognized and be included in this. Just previously, our president had a meeting with the developmental pediatricians and other allied health services, and they were talking about a project wherein they would also tackle about collaboration and including maybe the different services and identifying what kind of assessment and what kind of service specifically for each allied health, and we could be hopefully be considered as part of the behavioral program for a person who needs behavioral services. And so I think that's one light at the end of the tunnel. And then we get to start to they start to consider us and see us in we are already in their radar, and hopefully it would continue that ABA would be part of the Z package in the future. But there are other ways that families in the marginalized um, um, co- um, families who marginalized families can get funding from the government, uh, like a sponsorship or a grant for a certain amount. But the behavior analyst must sign that they'll be giving services. But the thing here is that it's a bit a trick. It's tricky because many would, should I say not many? There are a couple of instances that a practitioner is not yet a behavior analyst. He's or she is just an RBT, but signs as a QABA or QBA or whatever. And then people who would grant the funding doesn't know where to find these people. And so falsification and those stuff, it's really is actually an alarming thing for our association, that we have to do something about it, because people are finding ways to fund their children's therapy, but then other people are taking advantage of this, certifications and all. And yeah, so I think maybe Kay would be able to share some things as well.
Yeah, just for the viewers, the Z package is a government subsidized funding. It's under the Department of Health. So it's for healthcare. So currently they recognize occupational therapists and speech therapists uh to cover for their services. And so that's what the Z package that Kathryn was mentioning. And currently, the status also with the Inclusive Education Act, so ABA is also not yet listed as part of the intervention that can be provided to students with special needs. With the services, so hopefully, yes, in the future they can have the government subsidized for the services through this package. And also, I think the one that you're mentioning, Kathryn, is the DSWD. There's one center, yes, that I was consulting with before, who used to have a memorandum of understanding with a local. So it's a social welfare department here in the Philippines, another government department, government department. So they did, so they didn't really ask. Actually, the system is quite puzzling. So he just said, so we will apply for this funding from the local government, the SWD, the department. And I really didn't actually sign anything as opposed to what you said. They just said that they will. And I didn't even know, like, so, and then it started and it ended, and I didn't know what happened. But that I didn't submit anything. I guess they gave my name. Of course, they can always search for my name through the BACB website. But as per compliance, I actually didn't know what happened. That's why having a system in place would be really great in safeguarding the consumers against those frauds. I think it stopped when I heard that it stopped because they said there's another clinic in their province who claimed otherwise, that they're certified. So I guess the sensible thing for the department to do was really stop everything. So we won't be servicing this center because we found out. So we won't really service any center at all. So that would help us actually. I mean the department, that would help us safeguard the clients to just really stop everything, because I don't think they have the resources to check on every center that will apply to them. So having an organization, a local organization where they can easily, just like a one-stop shop, where they can easily check everything, would be really beneficial to the government as well. Because we're really working on a lot of things. We also have an issue with practice, as there's another law that would coincide with our practice, this psychology law. I'm not very much familiar. I'm not a graduate of psychology. So they're claiming that ABA should be practiced only by psychologists. So that's another hurdle that we're trying to figure out right now.
Sure. Yeah. A common argument across the world. Yeah. 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 No. So it sounds like a big role of the association is, like I think what Kathryn and Kristine said earlier, is building the infrastructure building the systems and being sort of a place that everyone can get information. I know we only have a few minutes left, and so I just wanted to talk a bit about you've talked a lot about sort of the supports you're trying to build internally in the Philippines, and with 80% of your members being in the Philippines, I think that is important to focus on those areas. But I'd like to talk just for a little bit about the other 20%, these other folks that are sort of working overseas. And Kristine, yourself, you're in Australia now. Maybe Kristine, you could tell me a little bit about sort of what it's like sort of being a Filipino practitioner outside of the Philippines, and some of the barriers you've run into, and some of the challenges you've heard from some of the other members, and how you're trying to sort of support those folks through that.
That's an amazing question because we're miles and miles away. I think at the end of the day, it's really that sense of service that even if the time difference is a big deal, as you know, it's really making time for the people that you care about. Because I do have good friends in the organization. One of the challenges I faced was definitely how to still come in contact with them and try to jump into the meetings as much as I can. So I really try my best to work in the background now, like lots of those, research. If you need a speaker, sure, I'll be the speaker. Or like you need me to come up with, something that doesn't have to be me there in present time, like those webinars, those community of practice, because we could do it whenever that we can. Another way to go about it is really helping the current organization find avenues to tap resources outside. So let's say some of them are looking like, I want to move to, let's say, Australia or the US or whatever. What kind of programs could I do there so I can come back in the Philippines? So that's where we become helpful. So we would tell them like, look, there are these universities in Australia who offer these sorts of programs. We also know Filipinos in that university. Maybe we can, connect you guys. So here, obviously, the Association for Behavior Analysis has already been, well-established organization, but there are also Filipinos in that organization. So we get to kind of connect with other Filipinos there and also fellow Asians. So there are, at least in my previous organization, there were a few Malaysians and Singaporeans. So we go like, hey, what's going on in there? So it's still forming that connection. Like, how are we going to give back to our communities? Where we came from. And I think it's really fun because every time you get to meet someone, you also get to, it's kind of like reading another library. You also get to hear their history, and you're getting to know what challenges they face and how you're going to use those challenges to learn from them. So I personally have fun. It's an impetus to just get to know people and do this. I mean, you wouldn't have gotten us if it weren't through, I think, LinkedIn that we posted that coffee chat. So it's good. Now we're across Canada. You'll never know if there are Filipinos who are in Canada who are behavior analysts. Please, if you want to help volunteers. By the way, we're volunteers. So we're not paid to do our work in the organization. We just do it for the heart of it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, kind of last thoughts. What's sort of some of the bigger projects that the association is working on, and what's sort of the next year look like for you folks?
I think we get to work on our professional standards here, and looking at hopefully more universities would offer the coursework, and later on in a master's program, and shaping and helping our members to step up the ladder with the projects of Kristine during in the community of practice, and we hope to invite them to upgrade and become full members and be more interested in our field in practicing and do the right thing and do better when they get to really know the field of ABA.
Sure.
So yeah, I think Kay might have more to say about that for the projects of
Yeah,
QABA.
we'll just continue what each committees are asked to do. Reach out more to the government. Since we have 5 committees, so we have the committee who um keeps track of getting more members. We have a committee who keeps on talking to the universities, knocking on their doors. We also have a committee where Kristine is in charge of the professional growth, the kapihan, and the community of practice. We also continue with tackling the issues with the standards and ethics committees, and of course the government relations. So one of the things that we really need to work on is to get ourselves out there, to get us recognized, not just within the group. Of course, we recognize each other as behavior analysts, but we also need a recognition of the community. So that's really one of the hardest things that we have to hurdle.
To kind of wrap things up, if folks want to learn more about the association, where can folks go to find out more and to join and to reach out to you folks?
We have a website. It's pbap.org, pbaap.org. So people can click on the registration button. And so we invite them to join our organization or association and be more involved, especially to those Filipino, American, or maybe anywhere in the part of the world.
Hmm.
Please join us and support our mission. And hopefully we'll get to see you as well in one of our in-person or in our one of our webinars or in our virtual activities.
Amazing. All right, Kathryn, Kristine, Kaye, thanks for coming on to tell me all about ABA in the Philippines, and look forward to following your work and having you back again soon.
Yes,
Excellent.
Thank you
Thanks
so
so much.
much.
Nice to see you girls again. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
The third secret word is gift. I hope you enjoyed this conversation about behavior analysis in the Philippines. You must check out episode 188, Incorporating Filipino Values in Behavioral Health, with Dr. Pauline Pablo. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe to our YouTube page at Behaviour Speak. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.